The Galactic Senate's statement came with no tremble in its voice. No regret. Just a broadcast beamed in crisp, bureaucratic monotone. Sectors D7, Omega have been neutralized. Civilian casualties include 5 minor dependents, human. Hostile structures eliminated. Emotional stability metrics remain within acceptable tolerance. On Earth, the news played once, then again, and again, until the faces of 5 smiling children, caught mid-giggle in photos taken by mothers with war medals, became background static. But their mothers didn't cry. Not in public, not in private either. They packed their dresses. They booked one shuttle. They smiled politely. Now, as the grand hall of the Zelvathian summit shimmered with ambient starlight and clinking glass, 5 human women stepped onto the marble floor, dressed like diplomats' wives and walking like coiled wire beneath silk. "Ah, the Terrans," drawled High Counselor Vrel, adjusting his 4-eyed monocle over his gelatinous lids. "Such punctual creatures. Only 40 rotations late." General Loretta Kane smiled first. A wide, southern peach pie smile. "Well, y'all know how traffic is this side of Orion's belt," she cooed, removing her sunglasses. Her eyes were desert fire. Too calm. Too steady. The aliens didn't flinch. Not yet. Farah Hughes didn't bother with pleasantries. She nodded once, hair cropped short and tight as military protocol. Her suit was charcoal and unadorned, save for a small gold pin, 5 tiny stars in a half-moon arc. She took her seat like it was a war post, not a cushioned chair. Next came Abigail Knox, knitting needles already working a neat rhythm beneath her shawl. No one noticed the thread was carbon fiber wire. She offered a serene, wordless nod. British. Unshakable. The type who'd host tea while kingdoms fell around her. Tasha Mendoza laughed, loud and full, like she'd just heard the best joke in 3 galaxies. "Sorry for the delay," she said, brushing imaginary dust off her turquoise shawl. "I was admiring the orbital cannons y'all got up there. Real pretty. Big boys." She winked at an armored lizard admiral across the hall. He shifted uncomfortably. Irene Cole arrived last, bouncing on her heels like a tourist at her first interplanetary peace talk. "Such lovely tiles," she whispered, squatting to examine the marbled floor. "Crystalline kevinite? Ours always crack under a good siege." The Grand Senate was still clapping when Loretta's smile thinned. She folded her hands atop the polished table. "So," she said, as sweetly as syrup in sunlight, "I reckon we ought to talk about the kids." There was a pause. Then murmurs. The kind politicians make when caught unprepared, fumbling through their data slates for talking points, for scripts they hoped they'd never need. The silence before the storm, not from Earth, but from the galaxy that thought itself immune to Earth storms. Counselor Vrel cleared his throat, a wet, burbling rasp like mud under boots. "We extend condolences, of course. The conflict in D7 was unfortunate. We assure you the losses were minimal." Abigail finished without looking up. Her needles clicked, steel slicing thread in perfect tempo. "That was the word in your transmission. Minimal." Vrel faltered. "Yes, well. My son was 4, Irene said, still crouched by the floor. He liked fireflies and sang nursery rhymes backwards. Your troops mistook him for a decoy drone." Tasha leaned forward, teeth bared in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "My daughter helped design the orbital relay you bombed. She was 6, and better at math than your entire Ministry of Navigation." Farah said nothing. She didn't have to. The pressure in the room shifted like barometric drop before thunder. Another alien, this one serpentine and robed in diplomatic purple, hissed softly, "We acknowledge your pain. But vengeance does not rebuild what was lost." Loretta's laughter was soft, almost maternal. "Oh, honey, who said anything about vengeance?" The aliens blinked in unison, expressions stretching through confusion, discomfort, and something else, recognition. "You are grieving," one of them offered cautiously. "Oh no," Loretta said. "Grieving was last week. Today." She laid a slender finger on the table. "Today we're just being polite." Behind her, the large screens lit up with images, of playgrounds reduced to ash, of 5 tiny coffins born on silent shuttles. The audience stiffened. Cameras panned. The transmission was public now. Tasha clucked her tongue. "Gotta admit, you got some nerve staging a peace summit after that little mess." Farah finally spoke, her voice flat, clipped, pure military. "You thought you killed civilians. That's where you failed. You killed legacies. Bloodlines designed to defend Earth for the next 100 years. And now," Abigail added, finally looking up from her knitting, "you'll learn what mothers do when legacies are erased." There was no raised voice, no pounding of fists or sabers rattling. Just 5 women, calm, civil, smiling. An aide from the Zelvati security team approached Rel, whispering frantically in a dialect most couldn't follow. But Abigail could. She smiled at the exact moment his face turned grayish-yellow. "Everything all right, counselor?" she asked, her tone smooth as a lullaby. "Just routine atmospheric data," Vrel lied. Loretta sipped her drink. "Hope it ain't anything important, sugar. We'd hate for this nice little summit to go sideways." Suddenly, one of the side walls shifted. Unnoticed by most, Irene had tapped into the central display. It flickered and shifted to show 5 locations, 5 starports, all blinking red. The room gasped. "Operation began 23 minutes ago," Farah said. "But we're not here to discuss logistics." Abigail added, "That would be impolite." "We're here," Irene said brightly, "to offer you a chance." "What kind of chance?" someone choked out. Loretta's voice dropped to velvet steel. "The kind where we walk out of here, you walk out of here, and no one else dies today. But that depends on whether you choose to call it surrender or mercy." Another long pause. The aliens, proud, pompous, aged in 100 treaties and 1,000 lies, didn't know how to respond. "How dare you threaten us?" someone began. "Threaten?" Irene looked shocked. "Gracious, no. We're just talking. Smiling. Like good ladies ought to." "Besides," Tasha said, standing slowly, "you already know what happens when humans stop smiling." Farah walked toward the window, hands clasped behind her back. Below, the skyline glittered with peace banners. Ships hovered in neat rows. Civilians filled plazas. She tapped her wristband once. A soft pulse. Above, a single freighter exploded in the sky. Panic hadn't set in yet. Just confusion. She turned back, voice soft. "That was a warning shot." Loretta stood too. "Y'all got about 8 hours before this planet becomes a cautionary tale." "We'll give you till sunrise," said Abigail, rising with the others. "Enough time to decide whether your pride is worth your capital." The 5 generals turned in perfect synchronicity. No need for dramatics. The quiet was louder. Irene lingered at the door, head tilted like a curious child. "And if we're not invited back for breakfast," she said, "just know we ain't the ones you should worry about." Vrel croaked. "Then who?" Irene smiled, eyes glowing just slightly. "Earth's got more mothers. Some of them don't talk so nice." She closed the door behind her with a click. And for the first time in 7 galactic cycles, the silence in the Grand Hall was human-made. They moved separately now, 5 shadows drifting through the belly of the Empire, each on a different path, each smiling in their own way. To the aliens, they were merely human mothers on a goodwill tour, hands folded, back straight, lips glossed with polite diplomacy. But beneath the charm lay a map, a pulse, a rhythm. Operation Widowmaker had already begun. Loretta Kane sipped a fizzy purple drink at the Zelvathian Bureau of Infrastructure. Her blonde curls were tied back into a modest knot. She hummed something old and earthy, maybe country gospel, as she played a simple card game with the assistant to the Minister of Structural Oversight. "Now, sugar," she said, fanning herself with an outdated transit schedule. "You sure there ain't any blueprints for that communications relay hub? Just want a peek. I do love architecture." The assistant, a 6-eyed Gralvik named Trill, chuckled. "Earthlings and your quaint curiosities. Fine. One look." She leaned in like a curious ant peeking at a baby's first drawing. "Well, ain't that something?" she whispered. Meanwhile, Abigail Knox took the elevator 37 floors below the Galactic Archives, where she'd scheduled a seminar on Terran textile heritage. The alien scholars were eager. Earth's primitive, woven culture. Fascinated, the high-minded vexery. She spoke calmly while knitting something smooth and gleaming. This pattern, she explained, replicates the human nervous system's branching paths. It adapts to complexity. One of the archivists leaned closer. Does it respond to stimuli? Abigail's lips lifted, only when threatened. They didn't know the scarf was a logic bomb in disguise, fiber optic threads embedded with adaptive AI, waiting patiently to unravel the secure firewall of the entire Senate's data grid. While Abigail charmed with needle and wit, Tasha Mendoza stepped into the docking bay hangars under the pretense of inspecting Earth's trade shipments. She smiled at everyone, patted shoulders, cracked jokes, even helped a group of Crinter youth unload a crate of synthetic honey. You know, she said to a green-scaled lieutenant, our freighters back home got a lot less muscle. She whistled at the twin anti-orbit guns mounted on a nearby turret. Bet those pack a punch. They're obsolete, the lieutenant said proudly. We use gravitic warheads now. Tasha chuckled, noting the maintenance bots crawling over the barrel like beetles. Mind if I take a closer look? She didn't need long. 2 magnetic pulses, 3 slips of microcode into the maintenance uplink, and the turrets were hers. Quiet, elegant, ready for detonation with a flick of her wrist. Irene Cole, ever the sunshine, wandered the markets. She bought a single hand-carved music orb and spent 10 minutes listening to its alien lullaby before leaning over to the vendor, a small arthropod who blinked at her curiously. Where do you store your emergency supplies, sweetie? She asked with a laugh. Just curious. We humans hoard canned beans and duct tape. Y'all got something like that? The vendor pointed out the government vaults under the plaza. Irene grinned. Good to know. I'm a sucker for a nice bunker. 2 hours later, Irene was skipping stones into the reflection pond just above the main ammo depot, humming the same alien lullaby to herself. Her voice was off-key. Her timing was perfect. And Farah Hughes, oh Farah, didn't smile at all. She stood in the shadowed tower of the Imperial Guard barracks, watching rows of soldiers drill. Her presence had been authorized for cultural military exchange. No one questioned her silence. No one dared. An alien colonel approached, chuckling nervously. Your people are known for unrefined tactics, he said. We assumed you'd be more vocal. Farah watched a training bot explode as one of the guards missed a cue. You assume a lot, she said. Would you care to share some Earth combat philosophies? She turned to him. Sure. Lesson 1. The dead don't shout. Lesson 2. Don't ask Lesson 2 if you failed Lesson 1. Then she walked away. None of the aliens knew the barracks waterline now carried a compound undetectable to their scans. A slow-seep neuroinhibitor keyed to activate when atmospheric pressure shifted. Say, in a mass panic. They didn't know they were standing inside a tomb already. By the end of the 4th day, none of the 5 generals had killed a soul. Not yet. Not directly. They left behind no blood, no screams. Only seeds. Seeds that would bloom in fire and silence. At dusk, they gathered in a forgotten garden behind the ancient diplomatic quarter. 5 benches, 5 teacups, 1 bottle of Tennessee whiskey between them. No one's watching here, Irene said, peeling off her gloves. They think we're decompressing. I planted 6, said Tasha. Could have done 9. But that'd be rude. Abigail passed her a sugar cube. I finished the firewall. The AI thinks it wrote itself. It's almost poetic. Trill gave me access to the comms hub blueprints, Loretta added. That boy couldn't lie to a cactus. Farah said nothing, eyes scanning the skyline. She took a slow sip and passed the bottle on. You all right? Irene asked her gently. Farah shook her head once. They think this is war. It's not. Tasha raised a brow. No, Farah said. It's correction. A soft breeze blew through the garden, stirring pollen from luminous flowers. Somewhere far off, fireworks lit the horizon, the Empire celebrating some minor conquest from years ago. None of the humans cared to look. Back at the Senate Tower, the High Counselor sipped fermented skyfruit and congratulated himself on his containment of Terran volatility. His aides reported the humans were calm, docile, and culturally distracted. He laughed. Typical of their species. so driven by loss, so eager to be liked. That same moment, inside the Empire's planetary security grid, a single line of code whispered itself awake. Widowmaker_armed equals true. Elsewhere, a Zelvathi patrol scanned the human consulate perimeter and found no weapons, no unusual radiation, no hostile movements. Just a folded note left on the front gate, pressed under a smooth stone. It read, "We're baking. Please do not disturb. Earth Moms." The patrol chuckled. They are so quaint. Quaint. Farah lay awake that night, boots off, sitting on the hotel bed with a clean knife in her lap. She didn't look at it. She didn't need to. The knife was for tradition. The war was already happening. Quiet wars always were the deadliest. She glanced at a photo. 5 children grinning in a schoolyard. No armor. No weapons. Just joy. Farah closed her eyes. "Correction," she whispered again. Outside, stars blinked like eyes waiting to open. And deep beneath the Capitol, a vault door, never touched, never seen, began to hum with pressure. It wasn't vengeance. It was a promise. The sun rose violet over Zelvath Prime, bleeding through the dome of the Grand Forum. Columns of chrome gleamed like spears in the light, banners rippling with the imperial sigil, a single black crown floating above a ring of conquered stars. The Plaza of Unity overflowed with delegates, civilians, journalists, and guards in polished exosuits. Drones hovered like bees. Flags waved. Cheers rang out. It was a celebration, a broadcast to the galaxy. The Empire had extended its mercy to the Terrans. Peace had been offered, and peace, apparently, accepted. At the center of the dais stood 5 chairs, each velvet-lined and gold-trimmed. 5 Terran generals sat with folded hands and perfect posture. Their smiles were measured, soft, unreadable. The High Counselor addressed the galaxy. "Let this day stand as testimony to imperial wisdom and Terran humility," he announced, arms lifted like a preacher. Today, vengeance was declined, order preserved. Applause thundered. Loretta Kane sat with a parasol resting across her lap. She nodded politely. "We do admire order," she said to no one in particular. "Even if y'all misunderstand the cost of keeping it." Tasha Mendoza twirled a sugar stick between her teeth. "They think this is us giving up." Abigail glanced at the press drones, lenses blinking like unblinking eyes. "We're not here to give up. We're here to write history." Farah stood without a word and walked to the edge of the stage. Below her, thousands watched. No expression on her face. No need for one. Irene sat back, legs crossed, eyes on the Chancellor's feet. Her fingers tapped her knee in a slow rhythm, 5 beats, a pause, then 2 more. It wasn't random. It was the signal. Underneath the marble embassy that housed the humans, beneath the diplomatic chambers and gift rooms and carefully monitored quarters, rested something older than the Empire's codes. A vault. 5 meters of reinforced alloy, sealed until the moment Earth declared, "We accept your invitation to peace." Because Earth knew what the Empire always missed. True warfare doesn't begin with fire. It begins with trust. Exactly 50 seconds after Irene's final tap, the plaza trembled. Not loud, not violent, just enough for champagne glasses to sing. High Counselor Vrel paused mid-sentence. "Ah," he chuckled. "Zelvatha's tectonic bedrock shifts occasionally. Nothing to worry about." Then the screens behind him changed. The broadcast hijack was silent, clean, polite. The audience gasped as the new feed took over. 5 children filled the screen. Earth children. Not screaming. Not in pain. Just laughing. Chasing one another through a wildflower field. One stopped to pick up a bug. Another climbed a tree. The youngest, a girl with springy curls, sang quietly to herself as she arranged rocks into a spiral. "They are human," an aide whispered. "Yes," Vrel said, eyes narrowing. "And?" A voice responded from everywhere at once. Every speaker, every drone, every comm device. Abigail Knox's voice. Calm. Timeless. "Before you burned Sector D7, these were the targets you called minor dependents. Civilians. Non-combatants. Children." Gasps turned to silence. They weren't soldiers. They weren't threats. But they were the future of those who defend Earth. And that made them dangerous in your eyes. The feed cut to security footage. 5 grainy shots of burning homesteads, collapsing rooftops, curled little bodies in the wreckage. Tasha stood now, too. Her voice was even louder than the broadcast. They didn't die as casualties. They were chosen. And then the floor cracked. Literally. From beneath the stage, a long seam split the polished marble. Glowing red edges flared to life as pressure valves burst open. 5 giant hexagonal doors rose slowly from the ground, each branded with an Earth military insignia. They'd been there all along, beneath the Capitol, under the seat of peace. Your generosity, Irene whispered with a smile, is why we were allowed to store our cultural crates beneath the embassy. Loretta took off her gloves and laid them gently across the armrest. That's the thing with us Terrans. We bring casseroles to funerals. We bury weapons under our welcome mats. Farah didn't speak. She simply tapped her wrist once. Every screen flickered again, this time showing tactical overlays. Sector C, orbital defense grid, offline. Northern relay hubs, disabled. Atmosphere stabilizers, redirected. Internal guard barracks, contaminated waterline. An alien admiral sprinted toward the stage, shouting into his comm. Abigail looked toward him and shook her head. You'll find your comms are busy being polite right now. The crowd broke into noise, panic chattering, guards rushing in, civilians pushing back, drones swerving erratically. But the humans stayed perfectly still. Tasha looked out over the chaos, her voice a whip. You called it peace. We called it patience. Loretta added softly, and this is the wake. One of the vaults opened with a hiss. Smoke rolled out. Not fire, not yet. Inside was a child's coffin, simple white. And inside the coffin was a device. A bomb? A virus? A message? All 3. A Zelvathy lieutenant collapsed as his exosuit failed. The High Counselor dropped to his knees. You lied to us. You manipulated. No, said Abigail. We obeyed every rule of diplomacy. Farah turned at last, her voice steady. We just understood the fine print. A new screen came to life above the plaza. Earth's global flag. Not waving. Static cracked. Then a face appeared. President K. Monroe, Earth's supreme diplomat. Known for baking pie at state dinners. Hair always in a bun. She looked tired. Not angry. Just very, very tired. To the Galactic Empire, she said, we regret your loss of order. We regret your breach of trust. And we regret to inform you, Earth has revoked its silence. Gasps. Screams now. The plaza surged. Troops scrambled. The banners of peace collapsed as kinetic winds surged through the square. You broke a line, the president continued, her eyes soft. You targeted what no species should touch. Now you'll learn what humanity builds in the dark. One vault trembled and exploded upward. A single drone rose. It carried no weapons, only a projector. The image it cast into the sky was larger than life. 5 tombstones, real ones, dated and named. Each bore the same epitaph, engraved in Terran script and galactic standard, laid to rest by those who should have known better. And below, a final line burned into every soul present. Survivors have been notified. The vaults collapsed behind them, sinking back into the ground, vanishing into silence as if nothing had ever stirred. The ground resealed itself. Then came stillness. The guard stopped. The drones stilled. The crowd quieted. And 5 women stood unarmed, surrounded by thousands, calm as dusk. No one fired. Because they finally understood. These weren't just mothers. They were monsters built by mourning. Loretta spoke one last time, voice like honey over iron. You wanted to see the limits of human mercy. Now you'll meet the cost of human memory. They walked down the stage together, not hurried, not afraid. As they passed a trembling young alien, he whispered, "What happens next?" Farah paused. She looked him in the eye, and she answered, "Correction." Then they kept walking, toward the palace, toward the emperor, toward the real war. The Emperor of the Galactic Empire sat high upon a throne carved from the shattered hulls of 1,000 conquered flagships. His crown hovered slightly above his skull, held aloft by psionic will and sheer entitlement. Surrounding him stood layers of guards, imperial sentinels in black armor, living weapons bred from void beasts, telepathic elites, and one prime seer who claimed to read emotions from temperature shifts. And still, despite all that, the Emperor fidgeted. "Let them in," he said finally, voice smooth and cold. The doors groaned open, and 5 Terran women walked into the chamber as if they had never left it. Their gait was easy, not triumphant, not vengeful, just steady. They were dressed in black, clean, sharp, understated. No weapons, no escort, no entourage, just 5 mothers. Emperor Valcor leaned forward. "Your names will be written in galactic disgrace," he said. "Your Earth will burn for this stunt. Your species will." "Speak gently," Loretta Kane interrupted. "There are still ears listening." Farrah Hughes stood beside her, arms crossed, gaze like thunder held back by sheer discipline. Abigail Knox folded her shawl neatly and placed it on the ground beside her. Irene Cole began to hum, off-key, whimsical, maddening. And Tasha Mendoza popped a mint into her mouth and crunched it loudly. "You attacked us under the guise of peace," the Emperor said, rising. "And you think to sway me with silence and stubborn faces?" "We didn't come to sway you," Abigail said quietly. "We came to show you how this ends," Farrah added. A heavy pause filled the chamber. The Prime Seer stepped forward, eyes glazed in opalescent sheen. "They are odd," he whispered. "Their emotional aura is paradoxical. I feel grief and serenity, rage and amusement." "They're Terran," someone muttered. "That's what they do." Irene stepped up, her heels clicking. "You've been trying to figure us out for centuries. You built your strategies on what you think we value: order, diplomacy, survival. But we're older than that. We value memory," Abigail said. "We value the right to raise our dead in peace," Loretta said, her voice like a hymn wrapped in blade. The Emperor scoffed. "You threaten extinction for 5 dead whelps." Tasha's smile died. "You made war on our future. You dressed it in paperwork and cloaked it with law. But you made war. And Earth. Earth doesn't respond. It recalibrates." "Enough," the Emperor said. "You have detonated charges. You've defiled our banners. You've unleashed chaos on our peace. I ask you plainly, what do you want?" Loretta took one step forward. "We want to correct your misunderstanding," she said. "I've no misunderstandings," the Emperor spat. "You believe Earth is a world," Farrah said. "A backwater planet with too much temper and too few allies. You think humans are wild, uncontrolled, predictable in our sentimentality," Irene added. "You think we came here to break the Empire," Tasha said. The Emperor's crown dipped. "And haven't you?" Loretta tilted her head, eyes glinting. "No sugar. We came here to show you that Earth is the Empire." Silence. That word, "is," sank like a stone into water. The Prime Seer blinked. Several guards twitched. "What does she mean?" one asked. Abigail pulled a coin from her pocket and flicked it into the air. It spun, humming faintly, before stopping midair. The Emperor watched. A holographic map flared into life, stars, systems, sectors. Then it changed. Lines spread from Earth like veins. Dozens of red pings. Then hundreds. Systems labeled neutral now pulsed red. Trade routes once marked safe now showed Terran ships parked quietly beside supply moons, refueling. Merchant fleets with cargo of diplomatic honey were, in fact, armed carriers fitted with gravity shears. Civilian ships with baking flour carried isotope dampeners. "It's not just this sector," Abigail said gently. "The trap wasn't the summit," Irene smiled. "The trap was time. We let you think we were wounded," Tasha said. "We let you think we needed help," Loretta said. "And you poured in," Farrah finished. The Emperor stared, now truly silent. "You've seeded us?" "Not seeds," Abigail said. "Roots." The hologram changed again. It zoomed into key, imperial military nodes, communications, food logistics, Cynet control towers. each one marked with a tiny, almost imperceptible circle. Red. The Emperor whispered, infiltration. Loretta whispered back, inheritance. A sudden pressure filled the chamber. An emergency psychic wave, alert, emitted from a prime seer. Too late. A distant rumble echoed through the walls. Somewhere far below, an energy surge blew through Imperial shielding. One by one, sectors across the Empire went dark. Communications dead, planetary shields inert, orbital defenses confused and glitching. One by one, voices called into the chamber through panic feeds. Sire, our moon defenses in Sector L collapsed. Your Majesty, food convoys rerouted. They're gone. Earth units, they're everywhere. The Emperor took one step forward, his crown spinning slightly faster now. You're bluffing. You couldn't coordinate this without. Farah raised one brow. Do you remember the name of my daughter? She asked. The Emperor said nothing. I do, she said. Because everything I built, the fallback networks, the Black Lens fleets, the sleeper captains, I built for her. You taught us what fear looks like, Loretta said. Now you'll see what it remembers. The Emperor trembled, but refused to sit. Then why not detonate it all now? Abigail leaned in slightly. Because we are not you. We do not erase for the sake of spectacle, Irene said. We choose when, Tasha said. We choose how, Loretta added. And we choose why, Farah said. And right now, it's not vengeance we're after. Then what? The Emperor rasped. What do you want? There was a moment of absolute stillness. Even the prime seer stopped breathing. Then Loretta stepped forward and said, Legacy. The hologram changed one last time. This time it showed schools. Not warships. Not guns. Just human teachers on alien planets. Human engineers repairing old machines. Human doctors setting up clinics in barren places. It showed little girls like the ones they'd lost, playing with alien children, learning languages, building new things from old ruins. Tasha whispered, this is what Earth really is. It's not a threat. It's a tide. You can't kill a tide, Irene said. You can only drown, Farah said. Then she turned, walking away. One by one, the others followed. As Loretta passed the throne, she glanced once more at the Emperor. Your empire will survive, she said, but only as a footnote in ours. You said you came to correct my misunderstanding, the Emperor said, quiet now. Loretta paused. I did. Then tell me, what was the misunderstanding? She looked back over her shoulder. That you ever had control. She left him in silence. Behind her, the Emperor stood alone, not defeated, but surrounded, and very, very small.